Hi and hello watch fans, and welcome back to the Real Time Show with me, your host, your friendly neighbourhood watchmaker Rob Nuts. Today I am joined by two titans of British watchmaking, Davide Cerrato of Bremont and Mike France of Christopher Ward, to talk about the next steps for British watchmaking. And of course, the implication of that question is there have been many steps taken already, and these two gentlemen and their brands are largely responsible for the strong position British watchmaking finds itself in right now. So Mike, Davide, welcome to the studio.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. You guys are, of course, extremely important parts of the watchmaking scene and also very important to the London Watch Week, which is in progress now as this episode airs. So we're going to give people a little bit more context behind both your brands and exactly the state of British watchmaking. So that's where we'll start. Mike, would you be so kind as to give us a very quick rundown on how you think British watchmaking is doing right now?
There's every reason to believe that British watchmaking is in good health. The latest bellwether report that we published not that long ago, by we I mean the Alliance of British Watch and Clockmaking, suggested that growth over the previous 4 years had been about 65%, well outperforming the sector globally. But we must remember also that the British sector is also a very small component of a very large worldwide industry. Nevertheless, I think it's continuing to grow. And it's, I think, possibly more importantly than anything, I think it's continuing to grow faster outside of its home shores. So, which I think is a really positive sign for the industry, because within, the United Kingdom, that's one thing where most brands will have a greater level of familiarity with consumers. But my understanding, and from the research that we did and the numbers that were collated, the growth in markets like the United States are far outperforming those of the home market. So I think that's a really healthy sign for the industry. The brands involved are beginning to be recognised way beyond these shores. And I think that's certainly true of us, and I'm sure it's true of Davide.
Absolutely, yeah. Definitely, UK is a market of collectors and of passionate people. Is historically a market very strong for sport watches or tool watches, and that's exactly what Bremont has focused on. So it's getting a lot of traction, especially with the last thing that we have announced, in particular the moon mission that we are doing with the new collection, and in many ways UK is also connected and included into that. I totally agree with Mike. US is market number one worldwide, is growing double digit, almost triple digit. For us, will become market number one next year. And Bremont and Britishness resonate in a very strong way in US too, which is very, very interesting. And also, UK shows to have an appetite for innovation, and the jump in our caliber and design that we have presented 2 years ago, then we are really focusing on developing is being particularly successful in UK, which connection with a little bit of military, a little bit of the early days of watchmaking, and watchmaking was born in Britain. I think it's very interesting, opens doors and opens opportunity also for smaller independent brands that are joining the industry now.
Do you think that it's a lot to do with this new rush of brands that are coming up through the British ranks that we've seen such incredible growth, or do you think that it's partly that and partly an establishment of the more tried and tested names such as Bremont, such as Christopher Ward, such as, say, Fears or Studio Underdog, that is really underpinning this overall growth that we're seeing? I'll put that question to Davide first.
But definitely the four brands that you have quoted are the ones that are driving and pulling the market and the growth. But what is interesting is that there is also a full bunch of new independents with distinctive voices that are rising, and it's also very, very important to be part of, the British Watchmaker Alliance for us, British Watchmaker Day, the, British Watchmaking School, and we will speak about it later. But, it's also very important to develop further the market and to develop further the mean that every one of us can have in terms of business to also work together, to militate together, to have a single voice.
I couldn't agree more with Davide, but I think it's a combination, as he says, of both. I think it's the more established, larger brands such as Bremont, such as Christopher Ward, are growing. But we should remember as well, when we started the Alliance back in 2021, there were probably, I think there were 60, 62 recognizable British brands. We now have 119 members of the Alliance. So some of the growth is definitely coming as well from new entrants into the market. And I think that's not all of them are going to end up being large brands, but if only a very small percentage of them becomes another Bremont or another Christopher Ward, then that's going to put a bit of rocket fuel into the sector. And as Davide says, I think one of the things that some of these guys are bringing a real innovation into the market and shaking things up a little bit.
I mean, I do feel that you both, your brands, are very much responsible for showing this new cohort of wannabe superstars that it's possible to go from nothing to something in a relatively compacted time frame. We're not talking 100 years for either brands. We're not talking pre-war for either brand. We're talking 21st century sensations. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that would like to have the same kind of success. But it's interesting because you achieved your successes in different times. And now with this more crowded and maybe more diverse market, there's an impetus to separate yourself from the pack. Now, you're showing this ability with complications, and Christopher Ward, of course, with so many of your movements over the last couple of years have really amazed people at how much you're able to do yourselves and how much innovation there is shown there. Davide, of course, the complete revamp of Bremont, very few people saw coming. It was a timely thing, and you pulled the whole thing together very nicely with some very seminal releases, especially in the last couple of years where we've seen that full vision come to fruition. What do you think new brands need to do if they're not able to do what you are at this point? How can they separate themselves from the pack? Is it about communication? Is it about design? Is it about something else? Mike, take this one first.
For me, the most important thing is ambition.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of brands who that were in existence then, but really fell into the sort of comfortable arena of being just a artisanal business based with a few people, quite happy to be a lifestyle business. And if we're really going to grow this sector in the UK, we need people like Davide and more people like that who've got real ambition to grow. And if we've been able to do anything as an alliance, and if we, as Bremont and Chris Ford, have been able to do anything at all, then I think it's demonstrated to people that it is possible to grow in what is a very, very competitive sector. Unless you have that ambition and that determination, there are many easier industries to become successful in than the watch industry. It's one of the more complicated, complex sectors because the product is more complicated and complex than many other sectors. And this is somebody who's been involved in everything from T-shirts through to toys speaking. So I kind of know about this stuff. And so there are many easier ways of making money, but you need to have a real passion and desire to be involved in the sector in the first instance. You don't need a huge amount of knowledge to start with because you can acquire that over time. But what you need is ambition and a real hunger. And I want more people in the UK to really, really be hungry for success and to grow. Because if you know where you want to end up, there's a much better chance that you're going to get there.
I think that's really good advice, because I wish I'd heard that 20 odd years ago when I first got into watchmaking, because now I'm at a point where I might have accrued a bit too much knowledge to be able to do it. The more you know, the more terrified you become. I've hamstrung myself with like an insight to the industry, and walking in open-hearted, open-minded with that fire in your belly is probably the best way to give yourself a chance to do it, to make mistakes on the go, to learn on the fly, and to be able to reimagine yourself and your brand as you move. Now, we've seen this, interestingly, not from a British brand, but so keenly from Awake, the French brand that has reimagined itself literally two and now a third time, I think, within its very short history. But both of your brands never made a reimagining or an evolution of the brand a key tenet of the brand as in a communication strategy, but you've both gone through massive changes. I mean, Mike, when you started, it was about creating an exceptional value product with great transparency, getting traditional styles, things people had seen before on the wrist at a price they could afford. And now you're dropping movements left, right and centre. The design is pushing boundaries. Very, very interesting. Davide, you inherited a company that had made its name on a story as much as its products, you know, the English brothers and their passion for aviation and their background with their father's story as well. But it was a brand that needed a bit of a kick up the arse, and quite frankly, you gave it that with a complete overhaul, new logo, new colour scheme, new models, and new aesthetic. So I want to ask you first, how did you manage to get that message, which is a complicated message to deliver, hammered home to the journalists and to the consumers, to retailers as well? How important were events like London Watch Week to your goal in achieving that?
For us, they were clearly very, very important, to put watches on the wrist of people and to let people experience, into the metal, as we used to say, the watch, the weight, the way in which it sits, how it looks on your own wrist, and the comfort of the bracelet, how it looks when you lighten it with a UV lamp, and it is a night, and that's fundamental to connect with the community, and communities are incredibly important, and then to connect with the overall industry, and as you said, British Watchmaker Day, London Watch Week, we in US wind up Time and Tide events in Geneva, Geneva Watch Days, Watches and Wonders. It's the third year that we participated this year, and Dubai Watch Week. For us, this is absolutely fundamental to have the opportunity to let new people discover the brand, new countries, new retailers, to show up what we are doing, to deliver an experience also to these people that are coming and participating and getting a completely different idea of what the brand is, if they cannot come to Henley and visit our manufacturer. When we can do it, that is an epiphanic moment where they realize that the brand is much stronger and bigger than they could have imagined, and and the brand is set up for future growth and as a serious brand, and the manufacturer looks like any Swiss manufacturer, same level. So, but it's also very, very important to be there locally, to connect with the communities, and to show your energy, to show your engagement, to show your passion and your willingness to connect with people.
Mike?
Similarly, we've always, I think from year one, really understood that although we set up as a direct consumer brand, actually that allowed us a much closer potential relationship with consumers than people who sell through stores. And it's also one of the key reasons that we're now able to, I think, go physical through our showrooms, because we have which is all appointment only, because we have a huge database. So if you think over the last 22 years, we have the name, address of every single customer that we have supplied a watch to, and that's quite a lot of customers now. We have an enormous database, which allows us to invite people or they to our showrooms, and it's almost a unique position that we have. And I think that's why the showrooms seem to be successful at the moment, and that we hope to continue to develop them. But I'm not sure how many brands actually are in a position to replicate the model that we have, because of our communication network with our customers, which, as I say, largely was accidentally formed from 2005 when when we learned about this huge subterranean world of watch lovers. Before the phrase social media was ever invented, they were still communicating online, swapping information, stories about watches. It is a remarkably vibrant sector where people love to talk, sometimes bore each other with their interest and knowledge of watches.
Well, thanks to brands like yours, I don't think that community is quite so subterranean as it was. They seem to be coming out into like blinking as if it were their first day on Earth in many cases. But it's great to see people meeting in these physical events, and there's so many of them. Just off air, I was saying to you, Mike, how I'm going to be in Warsaw this weekend for another event, which I'm actually attending on behalf of Straum, the Norwegian brand, because the other guys are in Montreal for a simultaneous event, and it seems every weekend. Yeah. Oh, you're going to be over there? Okay, well, I'll give you some intel from Warsaw so you can send a cohort yourself next year.
I'll swap information about Montreal with you.
Jolly good. I look forward to hearing about it because, to be honest, they're all slightly different and they're all much the same, and that's a good thing because people know what they get now. And I think that the doors of these events have really been flung open, and in Britain that's got a lot to do with British Watchmakers Day because people feel welcome. There was a lot of people I know, especially female fans of watchmaking in the early days of these events, that felt less comfortable coming to them because they weren't sure they were going to be treated with the same level of respect. And now I think it's been proven time and time again that is the case, that all are welcome. It requires a broad church to make the watchmaking community tick, and it's in fine fettle. I would like to say, though, Mike, you raise an interesting point there, and to be honest, it applies to Bremont as well. A lot of these younger brands that are coming up, they may look at the way that you started and think, okay, Christopher Ward started out with an easy-to-understand, transparent business model, providing good products, great, and then with that, with the trust that they built up over the years, they were able to accrue the necessary resources to invest in some pretty exciting horology. Davide, the same thing is true of Bremont. Of course, I think, to be honest, in the modern world, there are a few brands that I liken to Rolex more in terms of a beautiful, tight narrative that was always adhered to, that made the brand very clear in people's minds. But you can't do that just by copying what you did then and what Christopher Ward did in 2005 onwards, because not only are there more people now, the whole environment has changed. We live in a new world. Watchmaking and the watchmaking community demand different things. And so on that point, we will pivot to the main topic of this conversation. What's next for British watchmaking? What steps should be taken to push it to that next level? Do we need more brands producing horologically complicated pieces? Do we need more art? Do we need more design? Do we need whatever? You guys tell me. Davide, take this one first. What does British watchmaking need next?
I think, as always in life, reality is much more complex than the theory is, and the answer is a little bit of everything that you quoted. I think there is an important point that rising brand needs to develop, which is creativity and originality. The worst of the worst is copying or referring to existing thing, and then you just flatten down everything and confuse the people. And it's really a lot about founding your own story, shaping your own story that can be linked to your personal story, to your an encounter that you have made, the way in which the thing has started. But it needs to be really your own, and with your tone of voice, with your narrative, and then with your design expression. And in the micro brands that are popping up everywhere almost every day, it's incredible. You see a little bit of this. You see very original designs. You see very vintage design, but they call back a period or something that is a little bit lost. You see more personal stories, or you see more technical stories, and a brand comes with a very special complication. It doesn't matter to me. The most important thing to grow all together is originality, is making that effort to go for your own story, to try to shape, and then as Mike said, staying connected with your customer, with your community, to understand what they like the more, what they're expecting, what they're, making them participate in, jumping in, contributing, so that they tell you also where they feel that the brand should go, or where they are expecting, or, what they would like to see. This is super important. Creativity, I think, it has been a little bit, if I may, missed in groups in the last, I would say, 15 years. And, market difficult, everyone going very conservative, everyone referring to colors that are worth more, commercially, or shape the world more commercially. And then, you flatten up everything, and all of a sudden you have 25 green dial, and 25 purple dial, and 25, royal blue dial, and it all looks the same, but with different prices that then are it's super difficult to explain. So, let's go for original stories, for your own stories, for pushing the boundaries, and then every story, business-wise, personal, is made of research, is a quest, is a journey. So, through the journey, every brand, every entrepreneur needs to find, then at a certain moment, boom, you find something that is really unique. You find Andrew Martin and Martin Baker, and, the ejection set, test seat, and or space, and you get in contact with a Californian company, and you get the opportunity to send one of your yachts on the moon. That's what you need to strive for, to look for, and then you shape your story around that. And sometimes it's just opportunities, and that comes out from encounters. And that's why, participating, traveling, I'm in Italy today, as we spoke, I just had a fantastic cream gelato that made a big smile on my face.
Don't make us jealous. Don't make us jealous.
And but it's super important to come here, to see people, to speak with retailers, to meet customers, to stay connected is super, super. And then opportunities arise, ideas arise. That's how things enroll.
That sounds like a tough job, but someone's got to do it. I hope it wasn't too taxing for you. Mike, I'm sure you agree with Davide on a lot of those points about creativity and ingenuity and personality being at the fore. But, you have a great insight into not just watchmaking, the business of it, but also other businesses, because you had a long, very successful career in other industries as well. What do you think the British industry would benefit from operationally? Do we need more watchmakers? Do we need to be training more people? Do we need more locations other than just the BHI and BSOW? What would help your business move forward in that way?
I'm not sure, Rob, but if you do know, can you turn up tomorrow in Maidenhead and let me know? We'll have a good conversation about it. Yeah, of course, I agree with Davide. And finding your own unique position, I think, is critically important in a very, very busy marketplace. What I think what we need more than anything, this is both us and everybody in the sector, is we need to find a way of attracting more and more of the brightest and best. All businesses really revolve around people ultimately. Arguably AI in the future, but no, I think even with AI, I think it's all going to be about people. And how are we going to do that? Well, firstly, we start off by making the sector bigger, making it sexier to join, communicating how wonderful the world that we operate in, all of us collectively, is, because it is a very, very, very unique sector of industry that allows for huge amounts of innovation and imagination, as Davide says, but also really, really interesting technical and engineering problems to solve. And so you've got this almost uniquely broad industry sector that should be and could be very attractive to some people who today might not even think about it. So the job one is really to make people aware of the sector, communicate it, keep it growing so that there are more and more jobs available in it, and not just watchmaking. Watchmaking is obviously a critical component part of running a watch brand. But as you grow, so is marketing, so is finance, so is logistics, so is every other area. And people just aren't aware as much as anybody. I mean, the government were not aware there was a watchmaking sector in the UK when we started it 5 years ago. Now the Alliance sits on every trade meeting there is, and are able to influence, things as diverse as duty rates into India, and problems around tariffs. Not that you get very far with those, but it's about getting the right people. And then I think what we need to develop as a sector is an increasing level of expertise. Brands like Bremont, are fortunate, and they have expertise, that runs through the business. That's not true of most, and by that I mean real watchmaking expertise, genuine understanding of watchmaking and the ability to deliver against it. That's different, in my view, to a business that is essentially just adding design. Design is critical, but I believe that if we're really to grow this sector, and ultimately if it's going to have anything like any scale of componentry industry, which is a long, long way off in my view, but if it's ever to have a chance of that, it needs to be properly invested in the sort of expertise of watchmaking. And at some point in the journey, the small brands, to really get serious and big, need to cross that lexicon and move into proper watchmaking. And that's a tough journey to make, and not all of them will make it, and not all of them need to make it. But if you're going to be if we're really going to be a seriously big sector here, billion, 2 billion, 3 billion in the next 10, 15, 20 years, then it's going to be built on genuine watchmaking expertise ultimately. And I
totally agree. And if I can make a call here, the law has just changed from April 1st, and we cannot bring any more watchmaker and polisher to have a business visa, which is catastrophic. There are already very few, and now we cannot bring anyone from outside. For sure, we can grow competencies internally, but it will take 15 years to set this up, a long time investment. So this is one of the things that should be avoided and should be changed, because definitely is not helping the sector, is not helping the business. Absolutely not. On the contrary, is stopping us to have access to the knowledge and to the talents that we need to make our work every day.
I completely agree, Davide. And I think whilst that's a lobbying that we can do with government, and I think some of that hopefully will change, as I think it's pretty well acknowledged now that virtually every step the current government in the UK has taken has done nothing but reduce the possibilities for British industry. Hopefully they'll begin to see some sense. Tony Blair pointed it out to them only yesterday, I think. But bless him, the Reverend Tony Blair, as a private eye used to have him. But it's true. But alongside that, I think what we can do in the UK, and what the Alliance is beginning to turn to, is education, particularly in watchmaking. So we have we're about to conduct a very intensive, large survey of what the educational needs might be of the watch industry in the UK, to try and identify what the needs actually are, and then work out how we can help provide those needs. Because we do need, because of what Davide just said, we need to grow more in this country. We need to grow more talent. We need to educate more people. We need to create more watchmakers. Now, that needs more schools of a sort. It needs more apprenticeship opportunities, et cetera. And that's what we're looking to do as an alliance as one of the next steps towards helping grow the sector in the UK. Whilst not forgetting that our major concern is still to promote the sector.
Because I inspire young kids to become marketeers in watches, to become a salesperson in watches, to become finance person in watches, on in luxury, and watchmaker for sure, designers, watch designers.
Exactly.
Again, very difficult to find.
That's a very interesting point. I mean, you've answered the question at the top of the question. I wasn't sure if we were going to get like some solid answers, but we've got them right there. Education is a great place to start. You both talk about raising awareness of the industry, putting it front of mind for all the potential people that could come into this industry, the best and the brightest that go into other industries that are better illuminated for whatever reason. Maybe what we're looking at really is a cultural issue where Britain, with its incredible history of horology, is not given the respect by its own government that it deserves. And the government maybe doesn't see the opportunity here to put Britain back on the map as not just a major or a minor player in the global landscape, but to become a leader in that. And we need grants, we need more training. Mike, you're a master of collaboration. The Alliance is doing wonderful things already, but I mean, how about like huge facilities co-funded by all of these brands proportional to their size and annual revenue and whatnot, where we can actually have like an education centre, because there is need of it. And if there isn't need of it, there's opportunity for it. And if we can look to that and say, this is what Britain is doing, these brands are working together to elevate the potential for this country. And if we can't bring polishers in from abroad, then we've got to train them here. And if we're worried that we're losing all the best marketeers to Nike or to Google, then we grab them and we say, no, come here, we have something for you. We need to make manufacturing on British shores a bigger thing, a thing that people can get behind, a thing that people can be proud of. I think something that men and women on the street will look to and say, yeah, that's our thing. That's what we're able to do as a nation. And we have this extremely diverse set of makers and designers, creatives, artisans who are capable. They need that guiding light. And perhaps one of the questions I had was, what do you see as your two brands' responsibilities going forward? You've pretty much answered that there. You know, you see it as your responsibility to make sure that the industry is alive and well, that it's thriving, that there are new people coming through, and that we get that talent and we keep it here. And my annoying question that I always ask clients who seem to know what they want is like, well, how do we get there? So it's about making an action plan, right? Figuring out what can we do first, what can we do now, what can we do without help, and then what do we have to do to get the help that we need to take it to that next level. I don't think we have those answers right now on the show today, because if we did, we probably wouldn't be recording this podcast. We'd probably be out there doing it. But I think we're closer now or at least I feel closer than I was at the start of the show. So thank you both for your time. Thank you for taking part in the Real Time Show once again. Wishing you all the best for a wonderful London Watch Week. I hope you get to meet all the clients, all the journalists, all the wonderful people that will be coming down, maybe for the first time, to see what amazing things British watchmakers can do. And I look forward to having you both back on the show in the near future. If any of our listeners have any questions for Davide or Mike, then please do get in touch via the usual channels. You can do so via Instagram at therealtime.show, or you can contact us via the contact form on the website, www.therealtime.show. We'll be back soon with more top quality watch content and interviews with the industry's finest. Until then, stay safe and keep on ticking.